Please let me call to order the Bristol, Tennessee City Council meeting of August 4th, 2020. Tara, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Turner?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Here.
King?
Here.
Powers?
Here.
Luttrell?
Here. I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for participating in tonight's meeting. Your interest in city government is appreciated. Please be patient with us this evening as we continue our utilization of an electronic platform for tonight's meeting. As is our practice, there will be an opportunity to speak on matters of city business this evening during the 3 scheduled public hearings and the appearance of citizens section of the agenda. Instruction for participating in tonight's meeting is provided on the scrolling message at the bottom of your viewing screen. At this time, I'd like to ask Pastor Jacqueline Boer to lead us in our invocation. Ms. Boer is a pastor of the Emmanuel Baptist Church of Lebanon, Virginia. Ms. Boer.
Thank you very much. It's so good to be here. And I'd just like to say hello to everybody. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your goodness and for your mercy, dear Lord. We ask that you will bless and keep all of our leaders here today, dear Lord, and that the best thing will be done for the people and that you will heal your land, Lord, as you promised, and give us direction and lead us to where we need to be. We just thank you, Lord, for these and all blessings. In your darling son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Kevin Cruz to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Cruz is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps and served very honorably. And he also just recently retired from the public sector where he worked at for the Hotel Bristol. So, Kevin.
Thank you, Malin. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd put your hand over your heart and please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Malin.
At this time, I ask Ms. Danielle Smith, our city attorney, to discuss the statutory authority for conducting this meeting by electronic means. Ms. Smith.
Yes, Mayor. As you all know, Governor Lee has issued a series of executive orders which have suspended the provisions of the Open Meetings Act to the extent necessary to allow governing bodies such as City Council to conduct their essential business by electronic means, rather than being required to gather physically in the same location. In order to meet electronically, City Council should make a determination that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. At this time, it would be appropriate for the members to discuss whether they have any opposition to meeting electronically, and if there is none, vote accordingly. If you would please vote by roll call, that would be best.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we vote that we agree to conduct this meeting electronically.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Tara, please call the roll.
Turner?
Yes.
Fire Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes. Thank you. We have 2 proclamations on tonight's agenda. First, we have a proclamation designating the week of August the 2nd through the 8th, 2020 as Farmers Market Week in Bristol. I would like to ask Ms. Councilwoman, Ms. Lee Powers, to read that proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. My parents had a farm while we were growing up, and grandparents on both sides had farms, and so this is very near and dear to my heart. Whereas farmers and ranchers provide citizens with access to healthful, locally and regionally produced foods through farmers markets, which are expanding and evolving to accommodate the demand for a diverse array of agricultural products. And farmers markets and other agricultural direct marketing outlets provide infrastructure to assist in the distribution of farm and value-added products, thereby contributing approximately $9 billion each year to the U.S. economy. And farmers markets can help promote child health and reduce childhood obesity by increasing children's access to fresh fruits and vegetables, along with farmers markets as significant outlets by which small to medium, new and beginning, and veteran agricultural producers market agricultural products, generating revenue that supports the sustainability of small family farms and the revitalization of rural communities nationwide. And whereas the city of Bristol, Tennessee recognizes the importance of expanding agricultural marketing opportunities that assist and encourage the next generation of farmers and ranchers, generate farm income to help stimulate business development and job creation, build community connections through rural and urban linkages, and more. Now, therefore, to further awareness of farmers markets' contributions to our community, Maylin Luttrell, the mayor of the city of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim the week of August 2nd through 8th as Bristol Farmers Market Week, in conjunction with the observance of National Farmers Market Week. He asked our citizens to support the State Street Farmers Market in recognition of the many contributions they make to daily life in the city of Bristol, Tennessee. This is the 4th day of August, 2020. And to that point, Terry Napier and his whole Department of Parks and Rec does an outstanding job of housing and promoting the Bristol Farmers Market. It's currently meeting in the parking lot adjacent to City Hall. So thank you very much for all of the hard work to our farmers and our gardeners, along with our city staff.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Next, we have a proclamation designating Tuesday, August the 18th as Tennessee Women's Suffrage Centennial. I would like to ask Councilwoman Miss Margaret Fire-Robin to read the proclamation.
Thank you. And I'm very pleased to read it. Also, we had Kathy Wall and Nancy Arnold from YWCA in January to do a brief presentation. And I will say that our Community Relations Department is helping with this celebration. And at 7 p.m. on Monday, August 10th, live on our BTN TV network and also live streamed on social media will be a celebration and a presentation partnered with Bristol Historical Association. So we've had to make a lot of changes with celebrating this year, this momentous occasion, but that's one of the things that we're able to do. So tune in on Monday. Whereas Tennesseans will soon celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. And whereas Tennessee's history holds an important moment in the work to make certain women could fully participate in America's great constitutional republic. And whereas on August 18th, 1920, pro-suffrage activists gathered in Tennessee's House of Chamber. That's in 1920. Okay, pro-suffrage activists gathered in Tennessee's House Chamber, their yellow rose signifying the blossoming of a movement that began in Seneca Falls in 1848 and would culminate in Nashville after 35 states had previously ratified the 19th Amendment. And whereas Phoebe Burns' letter to her son, State Representative Harry Byrne, gave him the confidence to remember the women, his mom writing in the letter, hooray and vote for suffrage, with Henry Byrne ultimately casting the deciding vote. And whereas Mrs. Byrne is part of a storied legacy of Tennessee women who fought for the right to vote, including Lyde Meriwether, Anne Dallas Dudley, Abby Crawford Milton, and Carrie Chapman Catt. Whereas Tennessee earned the nickname the Perfect 36 for her national example and leadership in making certain women were constitutionally made whole. And whereas without Tennessee's ratification, it is unlikely that women would have been able to vote in the November elections of 1920, and the worthy cause of women's suffrage could possibly have been delayed for several more years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor of the city of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim August 18th, 2020 as the Tennessee Women's Suffrage Centennial in Bristol, Tennessee, this 4th day of August, 2020, signed Malin Luttrell, Mayor. So congratulations to us for the role we played. Also, I'll put in a plug if you have access to PBS. They have a 4-hour special on the vote that is excellent history. So appreciate everybody who is celebrating. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda would be presentations. Since we have no presentations tonight, we'll move on to the public hearing section of our agenda. Tonight we have 3 public hearings. First one, the public hearing is hereby open for ordinance 20-9, amending and restating the future land use plan and policy. Mr. Soar, would you please summarize this matter for the public?
Yes, Mayor, I'd be glad to. Ordinance 20-9 was approved on first reading last month by City Council. As Council's aware, the Planning Commission over the last couple of years has been working through the city's comprehensive plan. And an element of that plan was the development of a future land use plan and policy. Now, this was a pretty broad-reaching effort in and of itself, in that it required a considerable amount of collaboration within the community and an assessment of the community's needs based on existing land use and what the future land use should look like to meet those needs. It's, as I indicated, it's such a critical element of our comprehensive plan because it does guide the direction, or it does guide the decisions of the Planning Commission as well as staff in terms of projects and how they advance in our community and where they advance. The Planning Commission approved unanimously the new plan and policy at the June 15th meeting. We forwarded to City Council, and as I mentioned earlier, it was approved first reading last month, which scheduled the public hearing for tonight and then second reading later on this evening. Ms. Sherith Young, our Planning Services Manager, is with us tonight to further detail the land use plan and policy. Sherith?
Thank you, Mr. Story. Good evening, Mayor Luttrell, City Council members. Tonight, I'll just go through briefly some of the proposed changes, just summarize those for you again tonight. The future land use plan and policy, as Mr. Sora stated, is an important part and companion to the comprehensive plan. There is an existing plan adopted, and that was adopted in 2013. So the city's current future land use plan dates to 2013. With the new future land use plan and policy for public hearing and second reading tonight, you have an overall updated design. You have an addition of some introduction and explanation pages to help it be a little bit more user-friendly. You have some updated policy language. We added some additional land use descriptions and images to this recent edit. And then we revised the map, the city map, and the inset, and added an inset map for clarity. So there is a large-scale city map included in the future land use plan and policy. You can see it here on the screen. You'll see the land use classifications in the bottom left-hand corner. So we did add a land use classification for medium density residential. The existing plan only has a low density and high density. So we added a middle category there. And then the handout that makes up the future land use plan and policy, it also includes an inset map. So it has the denser section of town where you can zoom in a little bit easier, see a little bit clearer of what land use is where. So those are the changes that we've hopefully improved with this edition of the future land use plan and policy. And as Mr. Sora stated, the Planning Commission did recommend this for approval in the June meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, no questions from council? Would anyone in the audience like to address the council on this matter? If so, please follow the directions scrolling at the bottom of your viewing screen. Seeing none or seeing no others, this public hearing is hereby closed. The public hearing is hereby open for ordinance 20-10, amending the zoning ordinance by adding chapter 4A, addressing design standards for commercial districts. Mr. Sora, would you please summarize this matter for the public?
Mayor, I'd be glad to. Ordinance 20-10 was approved by City Council on first reading last month. It does come forward from our Planning Commission after a number of months of work. This was a major work plan for our Planning Commission from late 2019 through the early part of this year. The purpose is to incorporate design standards for commercially zoned property. The new design standards will encourage a proactive development strategy that would enhance and strengthen the community's aesthetic appeal, especially along the major corridors, by promoting a quality building design as well as construction practices. The new design standards will apply to all commercial or all business districts, as well as the overlay areas of the Volunteer Parkway and State Route 394. Sheriff Young will once again detail this issue during the public hearing, and then City Council will consider this later on second reading in the agenda. Sheriff?
Thank you, Mr. Sora. So I'll just walk through a couple of key elements that will be a part of this ordinance change, or as part of writing this amendment. When the design standards are implemented, it will be implemented and reviewed at a staff level as part of the building and construction review process. If there is an appeal to the staff decision, that would go through the Board of Zoning Appeals. The design standards ordinance does utilize a menu of architectural features for people to choose from. So there is some flexibility and option when they're considering design standards. As Mr. Sora stated in the introduction, this does apply to all business districts. So all of our business zones will have to consider the design standards when building a new building or adding a major new addition to a building. This applies to all new construction and all additions or improvements that are 50% or greater of the existing building footprint. So it's going to apply to large projects, large additions to existing buildings. The design standards ordinance does continue the prohibition of certain building materials, and this is already in place in most of our business zones. So you can't have certain materials such as unpainted, unfinished concrete masonry units, no single sheet corrugated or ribbed panel metal siding, and there is a limitation for use of wood in the B2 downtown district, with the exception of things like the storefront design, doors, windows, columns, and cornices. The menu of architectural features include all of those items listed at the bottom of the screen. So when choosing architectural features, folks can choose from arches, accent materials, awnings, overhangs, landscape trellises, dormers, and so on. So there are a variety of options to be able to meet the design standards architectural features clause. So when do architectural features apply? There is a break at 50,000 square feet. So projects, developments that are under 50,000 square feet would have to apply 3 architectural features to the street-facing facade and 2 to facades adjacent to the street-facing facade. Once you go above 50,000 square feet, the street-facing facade needs to have 5 architectural features, and then the facades adjacent to street-facing facades would have 3. So the ordinance changes that would be approved tonight, if you all do approve this at second reading. The definitions section in section 203 of the ordinance will get a little bit longer, so we'll be adding several definitions to help define what those architectural features are. We would also make some changes in chapter 4 of the zoning ordinance. So the removal of section 408, which has existing non-standards language we have now. And we would classify and clarify that all within a new chapter 4A. So it would be cleaner and easier to direct people to the design standards section of the zoning ordinance. With that, again, the Planning Commission action was to send a recommendation for approval, and they did that at their December 2019 meeting. They suggested the addition of a definition for wood, and they directed us to consolidate that overlay into that chapter 4A, which is in place in the version you have in front of you tonight. We also will be moving forward once and if this ordinance is adopted tonight with a user-friendly guide to help illustrate some best practices, and then certainly to illustrate the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Just communicate and put forth a user-friendly guide to help people understand these concepts. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide any additional information.
I've got a question, and I guess this is to all of council and anyone of, what would it take of us taking out this portion of it going to the Board of Zoning and Appeals, if of the fact of someone that has an appeal of taking this out? Because I don't feel comfortable with that. Is there a way to remove that from this? ordinance from the zoning board of zoning and appeals?
There needs to be an appeal process for decisions that are made by either staff or the planning commission. And that's exactly what you saw earlier this year. But there needs to be a vehicle to give an aggrieved party an opportunity to express their concerns and take it at least one step beyond a staff decision on a particular project.
Could we input planning commission instead of the board of zoning and appeals?
By statute, the Board of Zoning Appeals has jurisdiction over appeals from the zoning ordinance. I think if you're going to take it, I think you would probably want to rewrite this a little bit if it's going to not go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
If we don't have something like this to go to the Board of Zoning and Appeals, what is the function of the Board of Zoning and Appeals?
The Board of Zoning Appeals is there to hear appeals of, among other things, decisions that are made by staff in interpreting the zoning ordinance. They're also there to decide appeals for or applications for variances, which again is a zoning ordinance question. Those things are laid out in the statute that creates the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Correct. So if we took what Vince has suggested out of the zoning Board of Zoning and Appeals, my question is then what specifically would they have left to do?
Well, just removing, if you want to somehow configure the design standards so that those decisions are not reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals, I don't think that's removing everything from the Board of Zoning Appeals jurisdictions. You would be kind of rewriting the design standards and configuring it in a different way. The Board of Zoning Appeals by law would still have jurisdiction over variances and administrative appeals of the zoning ordinance.
So if I understand correctly, Vince, what you're saying is that you've seen an example of how this was not handled well recently and are looking for us to have an opportunity to do a deeper dive and to review what exactly is going on with the Board of Zoning and Appeals. Is that correct?
And I don't want this ordinance, and I guess Danielle, you can answer this. In this ordinance that we're doing, which I'm fine with the design portion of the ordinance, but will we have to go back on this if, let's say that we would change and we would, instead of having a Board of Zoning Appeals, send everything back to planning instead of a Board of Zoning and Appeals? Are we going to have to come back and change this if that would happen? And that's why I'm asking the right now, while we're doing this, I would rather have of it instead of changing it.
I don't believe so, Councilman Turner. Right now, state law provides that the city council can appoint a Board of Zoning Appeals, but that the planning commission can also be appointed to serve as the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Correct.
And so if the planning commission is sitting as the Board of Zoning Appeals, they would have all of the functions of a Board of Zoning Appeals under state law.
Okay.
They would not be the planning in that sense.
I think we may be, I think to go in the direction that Councilman Turner's talking about, there may be other ways to get where he would like to go. And I think Councilor Smith just talked about that. So, but I think it needs to be part of a much broader discussion at a future work session and then a decision made based on that. There needs to be a vehicle to hear appeals from staff, especially in terms of their interpretation of the zoning ordinance. Now, whether that's the BZA or whether that's Planning Commission, that obviously can be a discussion down the road. But this needs to be part of the overall language for providing an appeal process for staff decisions, if for no other reason.
Okay. All right.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think, Dora, you're spot on, as is Councilor Smith. But it would probably be good for us to find a date sometime somewhere in an upcoming planning session for us to have a greater understanding of the Board of Zoning and Appeals and to address these concerns. So if you put that on a planning meeting, that would be great.
It's actually going to be on your August 25th work session. That was requested by council during our work session last week. So that will be an agenda item for discussion later this month.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I would
Okay.
just say this, I'd really like to thank the planning department, Sheriff, Tim Beavers, everyone that's had a hand in this. I know that the planning commission has worked long and hard for this. It's something that goes back several years now that was a request from council, and great job. I think that this gives clarity, and I don't think it's too overreaching. So good job, guys.
Ditto.
Would anyone in the audience like to address the council on this matter? If so, please follow the directions scrolling at the bottom of your viewing screen. Seeing none or seeing no others, this public hearing is hereby closed. The public hearing is hereby open for Resolution 20-75, adopting the Community Development Grant Block Program 2020 through 2024 Consolidated Plan. Mr. Sawyer, would you please summarize this matter for the public?
Yes, Mayor. As council may recall, annually you review an action plan for the based on the CDBG and the Home Consortium. But every 5 years, we're required to do to submit a consolidated plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in order to maintain our status as an entitlement city. And then also to remain as the lead agency for Home Consortium, which serves communities in Northeast Tennessee as well as Southwest Virginia. This plan is essentially, excuse me, this plan is essentially a needs assessment that looks at the overall community. It prepares and it evolves into strategic plan. It has two public hearings as an element to it. The first one was held by our Community Development Advisory Committee last September. And then during the following months, input was received from various nonprofit agencies as well as the Public Housing Authority as to the community's needs to be developed into this consolidated plan. The second public hearing is this evening. Our Community Development Action Committee did meet, reviewed the plan, and forwards a favorable. They met at the July 28th and forward a favorable recommendation. Ms. Christina Blevins, who is our Community Development Specialist, is with us tonight to detail the elements of the plan. Christina.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Happy to be with you here electronically. Mayor Luttrell, City Council, and Mr. Sorer. I'll just jump into this. Next slide, please, Tim. The consolidated plan is designed to help states and local jurisdictions to assess their affordable housing and community development needs and market conditions and to make data-driven place-based investment decisions. This is a 5-year plan, 2020 through 2024. The Bristol, Tennessee, as lead entity for the Northeast Tennessee, Virginia Home Consortium is the cities of Bristol, Bristol, Tennessee, and Bristol, Virginia, Kingsport, Johnson City, Bluff City, and the counties of Washington and Sullivan County, Tennessee. The plan is a 306-page document, which includes the needs assessment, a market analysis, and strategic plan. It also has the 2020 HUD one-year action plan for both the CDBG and the Home Consortium. So I'm just briefly, bear with me, I'm going to read the summary of the objectives and outcomes identified in the plan. The expansion of first-time home ownership opportunities for very low and moderate income households. Expand opportunities to qualified, very low and moderate income homeowners to rehabilitate their homes to correct minor and major code violations. Expand rental housing opportunities to qualified, very low and moderate income households. Develop transitional and supportive housing for at-risk clients. Develop new single-family housing units within the full consortium area. Assist in the expansion of support services for the at-risk population. Neighborhood revitalization through improving housing stock, removing dilapidated structures, installing sidewalks and recreational facilities, thus creating a viable, thriving neighborhoods. And lastly, assist with economic development opportunities through the creation or expansion of job opportunities for low and moderate income people. Okay, I want to go over the summary of the citizen participation process and the consultation process. Mr. Sorer discussed it very briefly, but we have really been working on this consolidated plan now for almost a full year. Basically, preliminary meetings for the local housing and community development and community support service entities started last September, October on the needs and resources available. We held our first public hearing in September 2019 at the CDAC meeting to gather public input about this consolidated plan. A community survey via SurveyMonkey was open for public input from November 8th through December 31st. We did have, I think, 120 people actually take the survey, so I was pleased with that. We held meetings with housing Community Development Advisory Committee, local governing bodies, local housing development, community services entities in the fall, winter of 2019, and of course, early spring 2020 on housing and community support service needs. We participated in multiple Bristol coordinated community needs meetings discussing the needs of homeless and at-risk population for housing and support services through Bristol's Promise. We presented to the COC, which is the Continuum of Care, which is hosted by Appalachian Regional Coalition on Homeless meeting, their July 2020 meeting. We have advertised this public hearing on the proposed 5-year plan in July, and it was also advertised throughout the consortium area. Johnson City and Kingsport and Bristol, Virginia are also entitlement communities, so they've also advertised their own public hearings for their CDBG money and for this home consortium funds. And then city staff, we all sit on multiple community organizations to support and encourage ongoing efforts throughout each community. Okay, so within the larger document, there is the 1-year action plan. For CDBG, you'll see it here. We have less than $200,000. We've got $197,163 was our allocation for 2020. We plan to use that in housing rehabilitation, the neighborhood stabilization and sustainability, which is our demolition and our sidewalks. We are not putting additional funding, but we have carryover funds of just under $100,000 that we're going to continue that program this year. YWCA of Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia is our public service funding, and we'd like to see $25,000 go to their child care center. They offer a sliding scale daycare that really is a very good program. And then of course, administration of 20% of the entitlement funds rounds out the CDBG. The Northeast Tennessee Virginia Home Consortium, this coming year, there is a certain percentage that you'll see on your screen that the consortium has agreed upon to for the last several years. So we basically just take that percentage, and then the individual communities tell me if they would like that funding to go to home ownership, which helps people with down payment assistance and to get into housing, or into their reconstruction rehab pot, I guess, of money you'd say, and that goes into just to help people within that community's area. So I do want to say too, later on tonight, you may be discussing this grant, this partnership that we have. You know, Bristol, Tennessee is the lead entity. So we do all the reporting to HUD. I input everything in the HUD system. We do these reports, our action plan, the consolidated plan, the CAPER, all the big reports that are required for us by the federal government. But the First Tennessee Development District actually really helps us with the contractors, the work write-ups, the lead-based paint inspections, all the other things that we have to do throughout all the communities. We just would not have the capacity to do the program without their support. So a little bit about where people can pick up the document. It is at the Bristol Public Library's reference desk. Bristol Housing has it. The Development Services Department, we have it at the front desk. The Slater's Community Center has it, and then of course online at bristoltennessee.org. Public comment period runs tonight through September the 4th. And as Mr. Soar stated to you earlier, the Community Development Advisory Committee has already reviewed the document, and in their July 28th, 2020 meeting, they voted in favor to recommend to you to approve the funding as outlined in the presented consolidated plan. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, no questions from council. Would anyone in the audience like to address the council on this matter? If so, please follow the directions scrolling at the bottom of your viewing screen. Seeing none or seeing no others, this public hearing is hereby closed. Next on the agenda is appearance of citizens. This section provides an opportunity for the public to address City Council. Comments are limited to matters of city business only. A response will not likely be made at this time, since in most cases, neither the council nor the city manager will be prepared to effectively respond to the concern. The city manager will look into the matter and report back to City Council, or, as appropriate, have staff meet with you in an effort to satisfy your concern. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual and are not transferable to other individuals. Groups are encouraged to select a spokesperson to represent them. If you would like to participate in this evening's appearance of citizens section of our agenda, please follow the instructions scrolling at the bottom of your viewing screen. Next on our agenda is appointments. We have one appointment to be considered this evening to the Better Property Board. The appointment will fulfill an unexpired term of office ending June 30, 2022. The candidates are Lonnie Barrett and David Rudd. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidates?
I can speak. I think both of them are excellent candidates. Lonnie Barrett served in the past, plus he worked for the city. David Rudd, I had opportunity to talk with, and he's newer to our community, retired military, also specializes in systems work with personnel and people and how things work. Sounded very interesting. Anyway, so we have two good candidates. I'm going to support David Rudd. It's good to have give opportunity for some new folks and to have some new views on our commissions and boards.
Yeah, I too know. Go ahead, Vince.
I was just going to say that I'm sure they both probably will, but I will, and nothing against either one of them, but since I did not was able to speak to either one of them, I'm going to follow my own new policy and will not be voting for either. But nothing against either person. I'm just following my own new policy.
If I could point out, it does require 3 affirmative votes to be appointed.
Understood. I was going to say, I know we have 2 great candidates here. Lonnie has a lot of experience, in the field of housing. And I know him personally, so I will be supporting Lonnie. But, I tell you what, it's a shame that we can't put both of these gentlemen on that board because they would both be really good. I've heard really good things about David Rudd. And either one that get it, I hope that they'll support. I'm sure that they will support each other. And when we have another opening come up, hopefully that will, that the one that doesn't get it tonight will get it then. But I do know Lonnie Barrett, and I know he has done a great job in the past. And so appreciate David Rudd as well.
Yeah, I too know both these gentlemen very well. Got to know Mr. Rudd last couple of years. Had moved into the area and had strongly encouraged him to get involved in our community. So with that, I guess he signed up, and at this point, I'd be supporting Mr. Rudd. And again, Lonnie's a great guy. I've known him a lot of years. I know he'd do a great job. And like you, Chad, it's a shame we have 2 good candidates like this. Anyone else? Okay. With that in mind, I believe we're ready to vote. Tara, please call the roll.
Turner,
No vote.
Fire Robin,
David Rudd.
King,
Lonnie Barrett,
Powers,
Can't hear.
Lonnie Barrett,
Oh dear.
and Luttrell.
David Rudd.
As we indicated, it requires 3 for an appointment to be made. So unless we have a change of vote or we have a different vote, then we don't have an appointment tonight.
Well, so I guess will these 2 candidates move to our next council meeting, or will they need to reapply, or how does that work?
If I recall, what we have done in the past is they need to reply. Danielle, isn't that how we've historically handled this?
I think City Council's rules and procedures now address this because we had this come up. And so I think the last version of the rules and procedures talks about this, and I will double check. But I believe that it will come up again at your next meeting for appointment. I do think that they have to reapply. But we'll double check. I'll double check the procedures and we'll follow that.
I do remember that, I think, being a precedence in the past, but I don't know exactly what our specific rules are on it. But Vince, just reach out to them, and see which one you like best. They're both, in my opinion, they're both great people and would serve, very, very genuinely on the board.
Well, no, it's nothing against either one. I think that, and they probably both, but I believe if you go and you read on particular board also with some others. This board comes with a lot of, there's a lot on this board and what they're responsible for. And, you know, I've made the decision going forward that unless I speak with someone prior to, then I'm just not voting. And, you know, it's nothing personal against either one, but that's just the position I've taken, and I'm going to stick to it. But,
Mr. Sora, would it be possible to include our city email addresses on the applications so that whomever is appointed has all of city council's city email, and they can reach out to council members as they would like to you know, begin the conversation if they so choose. It's a choice, but if our city emails, I mean, it's public information anyway, and that would just give them a vehicle to reach out to city council members.
That would be fine to do that. Most of our applications come in via electronic format from our website, so which also contains the emails, and we can certainly encourage them to make contact with you individually.
I think that might be a great way to move this on along.
Well, I mean, I think as well that, you know, it's upon us also to reach out and try to speak with these folks also. I mean, that information has been provided on the hard copies that we receive, and I think we have a responsibility as well to reach out and engage.
This just assures that everybody has the opportunity for communication. Both ways.
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. We have two ordinances for consideration on second reading this evening. First, we have the second reading of ordinance 20-9, amending and restating the future land use plan and policy. Staff summarized this issue during the public hearing earlier this evening. Does any member of council have a question for staff? If there's no questions, I hear a motion to take action on this item.
make a motion to approve.
I'll second. That's ordinance 20-9, correct?
Yes.
20-7, right?
No, 20-9.
It's 20-9.
Hey, my agenda that I printed out says 20-7, so there's a difference between.
Yeah, I'm not sure. My agenda says 20-9.
Are you on the second page of the agenda?
I'm on page 4. I printed out the detailed agenda.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 20-9.
I second.
Would any member of council?
Malin, it's
Yes.
ending and restating the future land use plan and policy.
Okay.
And yeah.
We skipped one. No. What?
No, we're on 20-9. I'm not sure what you printed off, but
It's got, yeah, it's wrong. So it's got stuff from our budget amendment. So
Well, that was back in May, Margaret. You may have printed off May's.
no, I did not. It's headed up. It says August 4th, 2020, and it's incorrect. So, okay.
the one I'm looking at has 20-9, and it's and I'm looking at a hard copy. So, but anyway, that is 20-9 is the ordinance in front of us tonight.
I found it. It's on the next page.
Okay, would any member of council like to discuss ordinance 20-9?
I'll just say that we've got 3 items. The next 2 after this, just a lot of work from our planning department, and I think we've acknowledged some of that, but that a lot has been accomplished. Also recognizing not only has a lot been accomplished, but a lot being accomplished during this difficult time where things are harder to do. So kudos to our planning staff for the work that they've done on this and other items. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, the public had an opportunity to comment on this issue during the public hearing. So I believe we're ready for a vote. Tara, please call the roll.
Okay. Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell.
Yes. The next item on our agenda is the second reading of ordinance 20-10, amending the zoning ordinance by adding chapter 4A, addressing design standards for commercial districts. Staff summarized this issue during the public hearing earlier this evening. Does any member of council have a question for staff? Okay, if there's not any questions, is there a motion to take action on this item?
Motion to approve ordinance 20-10 for
Second.
design standards.
I will second.
Would any member of council like to discuss ordinance 20-10?
I think just, again, kudos, a lot of work. Also the booklet that we've been given, which was draft and will be finalized. I think the visuals make it easy for folks to follow and see what we're looking for. Also just appreciate, as Councilwoman Powers said, we started this a couple of years ago with some previous council members, and it's what we were hoping to have, and I think the product is excellent.
Anyone else? Okay, the public had an opportunity to comment on this issue during the public hearing. So I believe we're ready for a vote. Tara, please call the roll.
Okay. Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell.
Yes. Next, we have 3 resolutions for consideration on tonight's agenda. First, we have resolution 20-75, adopting the Community Development Block Grant 2020 through 2024 Consolidated Plan. Staff summarized this matter during the public hearing earlier this evening. Does any member of council have questions for staff?
I'll just say again, excellent work to Christina Blevins and other staff members and the old group that put this together.
I'll ditto that, and for her team with the Community Advisory Board that works really well together, and citizens who work really hard. Also from my work in the community with nonprofits, Christina represents our city well and this work, and also works extraordinarily well. She and Ellen Tolton, who is the CDBG coordinator in Bristol, Virginia. So that is very helpful for our community, for those folks to work so well together.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to take action on this item?
Motion to approve resolution 20-75, adopting a community development block grant consolidated plan.
Second.
Would any member of council like to discuss resolution 20-75?
It's just nice to have it all in place.
Very good.
A lot of work.
Okay, Tara, I believe we're ready for a roll call.
Okay. Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell.
Yes. Next, we have resolution 20-76, adopting the option 1 death benefit for the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System Legacy Retirement Plan. Mr. Soar, would you please summarize this matter for the public.
Yes, Mayor, I'd be glad to. This item was brought to your attention during our work session last week. As council's aware, city employees are provided retirement benefits through one of two different programs. Those employees who were hired prior to January the 1st, 2015 are part of what is known as the legacy plan, and that represents about 60% of our employees. Those employees hired after January the 1st, 2015 are covered under the hybrid plan. And obviously that's the 40% of our employees. Recently, we became aware that in our legacy plan, the city at some point had not exercised the option to take advantage of what's called the option 1 death benefit. And that option 1 death benefit comes into play when there's an employee who passes away while still actively employed by the city. This entitles then their surviving spouse to, as long as that employee has been within our system for 10 years, to avail themselves of the same retirement benefits that the employee would have had otherwise. That is automatically part of the hybrid plan. So those 40% of our employees are already covered, but there is certainly a gap in the coverage for our legacy plan employees. The cost in exploring this with TCRS, the cost of implementing the option 1 death benefit for the legacy plan is a one-time payment of $220,444. Now, Resolution 27-6 authorizes the securing option 1 death benefit. It authorizes the payment of the $220,444 upon invoice from TCRS, but it also moves the date of this back to June 1st of 2020. That is significant. So with that, staff recommends approval of Resolution 20-76.
I think this is something that we need for our employees, and I'm 100% in support of this. And
does any member of council have questions for staff? Hearing that, did someone please?
20-76.
Second.
Would any member of council like to discuss Resolution 20-76?
Good thing to do.
Absolutely.
And apologies that it got passed by, so without our realizing it.
Okay, Tara, I believe we're ready for a roll call.
Okay. Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell.
Yes. Next, we have Resolution 20-77, adopting the line of duty benefits for Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System Legacy Plan. Mr. Short, would you please summarize this matter for the public?
Yes, Mayor, this issue is really a companion issue to 20-76. While we requested TCRS to explore our plan, exploring that death benefit and where we also might have some gaps or might be weak, they pointed out that the line of death benefit had never been secured as an option for the legacy plan employees. Once again, it's automatically included in the hybrid plan. This benefit is provided at no cost to the city, but the city council is required to elect to exercise it. The line of duty death benefit for legacy plan employees, under this benefit, a spouse or minor children who are survivors of an in-service employee that's killed either by accident or by an act of violence, that the survivors would be entitled to a benefit equal to the employees, to half of the employee's final compensation, which is typically what you would see on a 30-year employee retirement on that. Again, this is provided at no extra cost to the city and is part of a housekeeping measure that TCRS provided for us in a review of this policy when we were looking at it and related to the option 1 death benefit. I should have indicated previously that we have Justin Ball participating in our discussion tonight. Justin is our regional representative for TCRS. So if you have any questions directly about this benefit, then Justin is on the call, on the Zoom call to answer those questions.
Does any member of council have questions for the staff?
The only thing that I would say is that we appreciate TCRS working with us so closely to right this situation. It is very important. We have a lot of employees that are placed in a line of fire, so to speak, whether it's through our public safety or whether it's through other departments. A special thanks to Mary Lee for coordinating all of this with Justin, and to Justin, thank you very much.
I'll just make a comment also, Justin. Thank you so much. Please pass that along to your colleagues that this was huge for us, and we're very glad things have turned out as it has.
Yeah, no question. This is very important for us. Very important. Okay, is there a motion to take action on this item?
Motion to approve Resolution 2077, authorizing the line of duty death benefits to a deceased member's surviving spouse or family member.
Second.
Would any member of council like to discuss Resolution 20-77? Hearing none, I believe we're ready to take a vote. Tara, roll call.
Turner,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell.
Yes. This brings us to the consent agenda. Mr. Soar, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor. The first item is the minutes of the July 7th, 2020 City Council meeting, minutes of the July 28th, 2020 City Council work session, Resolution 2078 designating members of the City Council to serve on city boards and quasi-municipal and non-municipal agencies, Resolution 2079 approving an agreement with the First Tennessee Development District for program administration for the Northeast Tennessee Virginia Home Consortium, Resolution 2080 amending an award of bids for purchase of water and sanitary sewer supplies, Resolution 2081 authorizing agreement for engineering services for water filtration plant, wash water tank improvements, Resolution 2082 approving an agreement with the YWCA providing funding support, Resolution 2083 authorizing a standard abbreviated form of agreement between the owner and architect for HVAC replacement at City Hall facility.
Okay, would any member of council like any item to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the items included in the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the items in the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Tara, please call the roll.
Turner,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell.
Yes. Okay, this brings us to a very important part of tonight's meeting, as all meetings. We'd like to ask Ms. Annette Tudor, Dr. Annette Tudor, Board of Education, give her liaison report.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you all tonight. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an update. I'm sure you're well aware that we, like all school districts, are gearing up for whatever school is going to look like this fall. And so we're preparing for basically anything at this point. At our July meeting, our Board of Education adjusted our beginning of the school year calendar just a bit so that we could allow for more time for our teachers to engage in professional development. And so our actual first day of school is this Thursday, August 6th. On that day, all students will be remote. So no students will actually come to campus on Thursday. Our teachers will make contact with all students online or by contacting them through telephone just to make sure they make contact with them. After that, we will begin sort of a staggered orientation. We finalized our survey and asked our families to make a choice between in-person learning and remote. About 75% of our families who selected in-person and about 25% who chose remote. And so beginning Friday through Wednesday of next week, all students will participate in an in-person orientation to prepare for what remote learning will look like. We're having all students, even those who selected in-person, participate in that orientation because we may be remote for a while at the start of our school year. We also think it's very possible that if students return to school in person, they can engage in remote learning should they have absences due to just illness, routine illness, or being out of school for whatever reason, or a quarantine situation. So we're preparing everyone to understand what our remote learning option entails and what the expectations are for that. Like I'm sure I've told you before, it looks vastly different than it did in the spring. And so we're engaging in an orientation to prepare our families and our students for that. The rest of the week, next week, will be all remote. And then we should be announcing by tomorrow or Thursday what the following week will look like in terms of whether we're going to have students back in school or be remote, and for how long we would be remote if that's the case. At the point the Board of Education approves, we will allow students back in schools for in-person, and that could involve a staggered schedule of sorts depending on what our Board of Education approves. So our teachers are, while they're preparing for remote instruction, they're also in their classrooms working to set up their learning spaces for whatever in-person learning might look like. And so implementing safety protocols and rearranging furniture and those sorts of things they're preparing for just at the point we're ready to invite students back on campus with us. That's all I have before I move on. I've got pictures I'd like to show you for our middle school progress. But before I move away from the topic of opening schools, does anyone have any questions before I transition to some pictures?
Dr. Tudor, I do. As far as what is driving of the decisions of whether you're going to be in person or completely remote, what is driving those decisions? Is it as far as from the health department, from the state, or is this the school? Where is it coming from?
Ultimately, it's the Board of Education's decision. So in our August regular board meeting, they will be approving our plan. A couple of weeks ago, though, we issued our Sullivan County framework for opening schools, and that was a collaborative effort that we created that framework with Kingsport City Schools, Sullivan County Schools, Bristol City Schools, in partnership with the Sullivan County Health Department. And so the medical guidance, obviously, and the advice we're receiving about the actual virus and how to determine the rate of community spread, that is coming from Dr. May with the Sullivan County Health Department. And so we defer to him for all of those medical reasons for opening or staying remote, those sorts of things. And in our framework, we have a threshold. At this point, we've used the EpiCurve data to make those decisions. If you've been following any of that information, you'll probably recall that the governor last Tuesday issued some additional guidance in conjunction with the Tennessee State Health Department, encouraging schools to open and providing sort of guidelines for a safe way to do that. And they did not provide a metric for that. They did indicate low, moderate, and high spread, but didn't tie a metric to what that means. And so there have been hints that maybe the state is going to come out with a metric that would not be the EpiCurve. We don't know for sure if that's really going to happen and we're going to have that metric. So in the meantime, we're still deferring to our framework and the EpiCurve and the guidance that Dr. May provides us. So that's how we're making our decisions at this point.
So at our last school board meeting, when they established the date that school is going to start, is that being revised? Is that what you're saying in the August meeting? Then all of that is what was approved then as far as the schedule is going to be
No, the only thing, they did revise the calendar for the start date. So instead of starting, we actually should have started yesterday. Our original calendar was August 3rd would be the first student day. They adjusted that to be August 6th. The next board meeting will just approve the plan and the metrics and how we're going to make decisions about whether we stay all remote or if we transition back to in-person, how and when that might happen and under what criteria that would happen. So they would consider if the state comes out with a new metric, we would consider that, or they would adopt the framework and use the EpiCurve and the guidance from the Sullivan County Health Department to make those decisions. So it won't change the calendar or the start date. We are starting school on Thursday. That's already been determined. It will be, the discussion will be whether that's going to continue to be remote or at what point we would bring students back into our buildings and under what circumstances we would do that.
And I'm sure it's like the rest of council, I've gotten quite a few calls asking the same question. If, trying to, I guess, parents make plans for remote learning or if their children are going to be back in school. And so that was for anyone watching tonight of just kind of, I guess, clarifying of where we are right now and what will be coming forward.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And we're happy to answer any of those questions. At this point, the consideration is obviously at what point is it safe to bring children back into our buildings so that we can try to ensure the safety of our students as well as our staff. Right now, we do have staff back in our buildings, and so they're working to prepare for that. So we'll defer to healthcare guidance in terms of when that's appropriate to bring students back and when it is, how it's appropriate to do so that we have as many safety protocols in place to try to limit the amount of spread of the virus. We know that it's a possibility that it can happen, obviously, with anyone in our buildings, adults or children, but the more people you get in the building, the more likely it is that virus will come in and spread. And so we're trying to weigh all of those decisions in terms of when do we bring kids back in. Any other questions?
I'll just comment with having participated in the governor's task force for April, May, June. Some of the guidelines with the Tennessee Pledge, I think, are really well formed and a lot of thought and a lot of process, but some of it was very much not as timely as would be helpful. So I think that's also I haven't looked closely at the guidelines for if they are as good as the ones that they have had for business reopenings, et cetera, for what advice. But the advice was good. The timeliness was a little difficult to work with. So it is what it is.
Thank you for saying that. I will say that we obviously worked very hard with the Sullivan County Health Department several weeks ago to come up with some plan because there was very little guidance and certainly not what was released last week. And so we've been operating under our own framework. And so it does become very challenging and confusing to everyone when we get new guidance and we seem to be changing our minds. And certainly that's not our intention, but this has been a very fluid situation since March. I'm sure you all are very aware of that. And so we've had to change and adjust constantly. It seems like almost on a daily basis. So yes, it is frustrating when the guidance can't keep up with, we're opening school. And so that's a little bit late for us to have guidance from the state health department and as well as the governor's office, but we're doing the best we can and we'll forge ahead. We want our children in front of us in some way, whether that's a computer for now or in person at some point. That's what we're hopeful for. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you and show you some pictures, which is way more exciting than the coronavirus. All right, can you all see that first picture?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I I'm going to just kind of scan through just so you can see the progress on the building. If you want me to stop and ask any questions, you're feel free. I don't always know what I'm looking at, so I'll warn you that I may not be able to tell you what we're looking at. Some things I will know, but other things I won't. I really just wanted you to hit home the message that we have walls and there are lots of things happening on the building site. And if you haven't been by recently, I encourage you to drive by. It's very exciting. The progress. And so lots of masonry work happening, walls, interior walls. What I think you're seeing there is the makings of our science labs that are sort of in the center of all of those 3 floors of our academic building. And then you'll see the hallways on the left over here. You kind of see these would be classrooms on this side. This is the corridor with a set of center science labs in the center of the building. And this would be replicated on each of the 3 floors. So we have a 6th grade floor, a 7th grade floor, and an 8th grade floor that are identical. Said some of this, I don't know what I'm looking at, but you can just get an idea of the progress. What you're going to see here, these would be the makings of the actual entrance to the building. And so this is the old football field house over here. The new entrance road will come off Alabama up on this end. And so this will be the beginning of the entrance of the building. Again, this is back into the academic wing. These structures you all see, if you drive on Edgemont now and see from the front of the current building, you would be seeing lots of structures. This is the old gym still in existence over here, so you kind of get your bearings in terms of what you're looking at. This would be all part of the new administration wing of the building, so not the classroom space, but the part that will house the main office and the starting of the corridor that will lead to the cafeteria and those sorts of things. This would be, I guess, on the behind us on this view would be the practice field. So up here would be Alabama. There's a view of the actual 3-story academic wing. Like I said, the masonry work you see happening on this floor will all be repeated on each of these floors. So 6th grade would be on the bottom, 7th grade in the middle, and 8th grade on the top. This is the firewall that went up to protect the gym. And then this structure that you see on the front side of that, again, is the beginning of the administration wing, and that would be the front entrance to the new building. That's another view of that. You can see that from stepping back. The part on the right-hand side would be part of the related arts. There'll be some of that on the bottom floor, and then above that will be the administration wing. And then if we come around the side, I think that's where we're heading here in just a second. So this would be the new view that you're going to see from Edgemont. And so this will be the public entrance to the gym. It won't be the entrance to the school itself, but you notice the old gym is right here. So when we have events happening for facilities use in our gym, this is the public entrance for that. These classrooms down here would include band and chorus and related arts. Some of our arts will be down on that floor. And this will be the view from actually the new view from Edgemont will be this part of the gym. It'll of course be cleaned up, but you'll notice that we have beautiful new windows. And so lots of natural lighting inside the gym from that view. And you can see the old building on the right-hand side that will be torn down eventually. So you kind of get an idea of what that's going to look like from the road. And this will be the corridor going into the gym. So these are the entrances, the doors leading into the gym. And these are classrooms, like I said, the band and chorus and related arts on the left-hand side. This is part of the, this is the, I believe this is the entrance. You'll recall this is probably the old gym doors leading into the gym from the staff parking lot. And then these are views inside the gym. So you'll notice that obviously there's finished paint on the wall, which is exciting. The upper part of the The bleachers are torn out, and so we're preparing for putting new bleachers there. You can see the kind of the color scheme and the design. You're facing, I believe, this end down here where those windows are up at the top is a weight room, and the other side is a classroom space. They converted the old stage into a classroom space, like a multi-purpose classroom. What will go obviously here on the bottom where the floor, once the floor is down, will be the retractable bleachers. And so we're preparing, actually our floor installer is coming tomorrow for a meeting. So we're preparing for laying the actual wood floor, hopefully very soon. So it's exciting to see the gym's really transforming, and it doesn't look much anything like it did previously. So that's exciting. And you can kind of see this leads out to the back side of the gym, and that will be connected into the new building. And then I think we have, so this is the floor in the locker room, I believe. So underneath where the bleachers are, they used to be a gym locker room and a PE locker room. These have obviously been upgraded and refinished, and so that's the new floor that will be in those. And this is that multi-purpose classroom space that used to be the stage. And so this is the space in between the gym, and this is the 3-story academic wing. This is the beginning of that, the administration part. That will be the entrance, and then all this leading back this way will be leading the little theater that kind of drops off, and then the library and the cafeteria all the way back to the road, back toward me. View of the academic wing, and that you can kind of see what the finished locker rooms underneath are going to look like, which is significantly improved. If you'd been down there anytime recently, those spaces really needed an upgrade. Okay, so I think that's all. So exciting stuff. At some point, I really want to get you all over there so that you can see it in person. So when we're able to do that, I hope to get you all over there. And if there are any questions about the middle school or opening schools, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them.
Well, Dr. Tudor, I've got one question. What do you do in your spare time?
Well, I don't really have spare time. I will say that I'm excitingly getting ready to send my oldest child off to college. So we're taking him on Monday. So that's been a little bit surreal. So that's my spare time, is getting him ready for that, I guess.
Yeah, no question. You guys have got your plate full, and you're doing an outstanding job. And, we support you 110%.
I feel it. I appreciate that very much. We're not any busier than anybody else. It's just a difficult time to navigate what the new normal is. So thank you for the support. I appreciate that. And if there's anything we can do to help you all, we stand at the ready.
Thank you. Well, that leads us down to the city manager's report. Mr. Sora?
Yes, Mayor, I will be brief. General Lee's executive order number 51 extended from the end of June through August 29th, the ability for local governments to meet electronically. So that brings up the discussion of our work session on Tuesday, August 25th. Well, certainly we'll have it at our traditional 11 a.m. hour. Does council desire to also have that meeting in electronic format?
Yes.
Sure.
I would say yes.
And we'll be certain to provide you a virtual lunch along with that.
Thanks a bunch.
And then also make you aware that on Wednesday, August 26th, this is the date for the annual State of the Cities luncheon. I suspect that will also be conducted virtually. The session is slated to start at noon, and certainly Mayor Luttrell is aware of that and is preparing for that day. We'll release the details as they're made available to us.
Virtual lunch for that too?
That would be my guess.
Great venue, great venue.
And then several of you have been and will be involved in networks moving forward. There was Abby Meese from the network staff did send out a Zoom invitation this afternoon for their virtual meeting on Wednesday, August the 12th at 8 a.m. So be sure and check your emails for that. That's I suspect that will be a very important meeting as we continue the regional discussion. So that's all I have.
Okay. City council comment.
Bill, I just have a question. You said work session's the 25th at 11,
Yes, ma'am, it is. Tuesday the 25th at 11.
and we're going to Zoom on that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
I can go first. I just briefly, the COVID, our numbers obviously are not, continue to not look very good. And also our number of tests versus number of positives, that number is high. And so we encourage everybody to do what they can, which includes all those things: social distancing, wearing masks when you're in public, washing your hands, et cetera, et cetera. So we really would like to see those numbers come down. And I know our school system would like to see those numbers come down as well. And anybody, the higher rates means more of us do know people who are affected by COVID, either directly or indirectly. Also, just wanted to note with that, and Dr. Tudor for you all, and also Mr. Sora for our city staff, we have a motto, the best in municipal services. We expect a lot from our staff. We know what they're capable of and really appreciate it. But I would encourage all of us to recognize that we've been at this different way of life since March, and that we really need to help our staff and our school, et cetera, to take some deep breaths, to not feel that they have to perform at the same levels, or that we have to accomplish as much as we normally do during non-COVID times. It's highly stressful. Everybody is running on empty. So just really appreciate our staffs and our schools, but also for all of us, community, city council, for our staff not to perhaps expect as much from themselves, and to really look long range for, we're going to be in this for longer. And also we want everybody to come out in good health, in good mental health, ready to move forward when we're on the other side. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
I'll just say one word: thankful. Thankful for our staff, thankful for our school administrative staff, as well as the Board of Education, our council members. I mentioned one department, the planning department, with all the work they have done. But, there's one department also, to our police, that are I think our police department's in great shape. But, throughout the country, we're continually getting bashed by happenings in the world. And so I want to say thank you to our police officers, and continue the good work that they do. And that's it.
I'll jump in next and say, to piggyback on some of the comments that have already been made, it is a very unsettling time right now. We had thought that, by now that, organizationally, what the plan would be, and the plan is a moving target, regardless of whether it's what we can do within our staff, or what we can do with our school system. Parents and students both are, as our staff are struggling to see we're so used to having everything very organized and knowing exactly what our marks are and how we're going to hit those marks and what that looks like. Childcare is a huge issue right now with virtual learning and parents trying to get back to some normalcy in their work life and have been disoriented almost to say since March. And so to our students and our parents, I think Dr. Peter hit the nail on the head in the letter that she sent out. It asks too much for patience, for flexibility, and for grace. And grace is the greatest part of that, I think, in that how we deal with one another is to deal with one another with grace and to realize, as Margaret and Chad both said, people are mentally exhausted. They're emotionally exhausted, whether they are in the workplace or whether they are in the home. All capacities of life are especially taxing right now. To our teachers and administrators, we want I want to offer prayers and blessings as you go forward, realizing that, you know, if ever there had to be flexibility, it's going to be in the next several weeks as you welcome our students back to class, whether it's virtually or in person. It's just a really tough time, and we've got to be very patient with each other. Take a deep breath, not react too quickly to anything, and try to just show each other grace. And I think that through that and through prayers for one another, we'll all be okay, but we've got to be very patient right now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything all three of you said, and ditto. And you know, I was looking today on a report, and I guess today is day 154 since the state of emergency was declared. And that's a long time since we have started this, 154 days. And it takes a lot of patience. I know our city staff and everything that we all deal with personally, we deal with professionally. And so, you know, our staff has to be commended of everything that they have done through this, from our police department, Chad, through our fire department, our public works. Everyone, I think, has pitched in and worked together, and I commend them all the departments of our city and the services that have continued through this. Great job.
Yeah, I too concur with everything that's been said. And it's going to take all of us working together to get through this. And, you know, we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our community to do everything we can do and set the examples. Now, I strongly encourage everyone in our community to continue wearing their masks and keeping a distance wherever possible. I know that there's some resistance out there still yet about the masking, but it does work. And we just have to keep the vigilance up, and we have to keep reminding ourselves and our family and our friends that just how important this really is if we want to get this thing back in control. Anything else from anyone? If not, we'll consider this meeting adjourned.